This is episode 1 of
Nice.
Par and Purpose. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome Tyler Hicks, Navy veteran. What years did you serve, my friend?
So I graduated high school in 2010 and then left probably about 6 months after. So from 2010 to about 2014 is when I officially landed back in Ohio.
What drove your decision to join the military or the Navy?
Honestly, it was kind of on a whim kind of a situation. We had a buddy that was supposed to be heading off to the Army. Me and another friend took him to pre-MEPS meetings before they headed up to Columbus. And we were just sitting in the car, just kind of him hawing around. We weren't really being serious. We were like, why don't we just see what these other places have to offer? So we go in the Marines. That was too tough. So we kind of just laughed at him and walked out. Air Force, I'm a chunky boy, so it was a little too much weight loss for me to have to join the Air Force. So I decided against that one. And then we walked in the Navy and they were just like, go see the world, go travel. They feed you this whole pipe dream of just, international travel and all this beautiful things that come along with it when you're working long hours. And, there are days you can't even get off the boat, but, it sounded really good. So me and my buddy looked at each other and were like, you know what, dude, let's just do it. So, I was already on a kind of a crazy path way back when. So I just needed something a little different and needed to get away from the normal. I know I wasn't smart enough to go to college. So I just decided the easier of the routes to get out of here. And, we signed up the paperwork and I got my dismissal the date I was shipped out. And it was kind of fast paced because we didn't really have much time to celebrate Christmas and whatnot. Because I just signed up, hit the ground running and just took off.
Okay. So, you joined right out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
You skipped the Army?
I did. Well, my buddy was in there interviewing with me. So like, you don't want to go in there and really, because we weren't being too serious, but we didn't want to mess up anything he had going on.
Yeah.
So, since he was already in that office, we just kind of pivoted around. And my dad was in the Army and I wanted something a little different.
Got you.
The dream of traveling the world. And I did. I got to see multiple countries in my tenure and it was a lot of fun. And, met some great people and, some of them I still follow on social media. Some of them we still communicate with and just built that brotherhood or sisterhood once we parted ways or once our DD-214s were dried and we were ready to go.
Okay. We'll come back to the places that you went. Boot camp, what was that like for you?
Dude, I went to, they call it the Great Mistakes or Great Lakes, Illinois. It was right in the middle of winter, we're in full uniform marching through 6-8 inches of snow. So it was a little chaotic and we went during the holidays. So it was a little extended as well. So,
Sure.
Boot camp was crazy. I had a lot of fun, a lot of times where I wanted to give up, a lot of times where I would wake up thinking I was back home and I was still in the barracks with the red lights on. And it was pretty intense, but at the same time, it definitely gave me that sense of structure, discipline that I really didn't think I needed, but really did need.
Okay. You mentioned red lights, and that just immediately flashes over my eyes like, hey, dude, you have fire guard? My buddy and I joke about that a lot, but post boot camp. So boot camp is 10 weeks for the Navy, correct?
Yes.
Where are you headed off to afterwards?
I went to A school, which my A school was still in Illinois. We were right there, right across the street, basically, at Naval Training Station, Illinois. And I went through what's the word I'm looking for? Boatswain school.
Yeah.
Where we essentially learned to tie knots, how to moor, how to, once we get into port, how to line work, the essentials of onboarding products. We were also essential when it came to onboarding and refueling of the ship. We learned the basic commands, the different colors on board. As deck apes, we preserve the ships. We learned about different ways to preserve the ships. And so it was really cool. It was a very short period. It was only about 4 weeks worth of schooling. And once that was over, then I came back home temporarily. I got my orders in boot camp, which my number one place I wanted to go when we got to select our locations was Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. And to my shock, I actually got to go to Pearl Harbor, Hawaii.
You and nobody else. You get your number one.
You get your number one.
You never get it again.
I was ecstatic, yes. So that was my first duty station that I served at once I got out of boot camp. And I went home for a little bit after boot camp to spend a little bit of time with family and then got on the plane and headed on out.
So I know a lot of people, buddy of mine's a company commander, and I just think about like going home in the midst of boot camp can go one of two ways. It can be a really positive experience or a very negative one. And I think that the positivity is that you get a break, right? The negativity is that the break is too long and you don't want to go back. Yeah. So how'd you feel during that time?
It was kind of a bittersweet moment because I only had like a very, very short window to see friends and family and try to get as many people in as possible. So eventually once that part came to an end, there were people that I weren't able to see right away because I wasn't able to come back as quickly as I would like after I got to my first duty station. Because being in Pearl Harbor, it cost a lot of money to fly back and forth
Yeah,
between Ohio and there. So,
sure.
not only going in, I did get upped to a E2 when I was in boot camp because I was in charge of cleaning the bathroom. So they ranked me up for that. But it was tough because I didn't get to see anybody for a while. And as soon as I got to my fleet, within 2 weeks, I'm being shipped out to Guam for my first deployment.
Oh,
So,
wow.
when I got to Pearl Harbor, my ship has already left for deployment about a week before we got there. So they flew us out. We were in
Guam.
Guam for about 2 weeks before the ship came and got us. And then we got on board and we took off to 7th Fleet from there.
Okay. What'd you fly in?
We flew in
Okay.
commercial to their local airport, and we had someone there to pick us up to take us to the naval station out there, put us up in their barracks, and then we got to spend a little bit of time there for a little bit between working on base, and then gave us a little bit of liberty time to kind of go out and explore, which is really not a lot to Guam. It's literally just like one little strip,
Okay.
but it's absolutely beautiful out there. So,
Nice.
we've passed through there both going out to port and back, on the way back to Pearl Harbor. So,
Okay. Meet any friends along the way? And any that you still talk to from boot camp?
yeah, I mean, I've met a ton of people. There's a lot of people in a small space in the Navy. So, you get to know your people very, very well. Some of them you click with right away. Some of them you really don't. There's 2 women that I still talk to on a regular basis here and there through social media that we still communicate. They were some of my best friends when I was in the service. They were there for me a lot. I was there for them. And, we just kind of maintain that relationship now that we're all out now. There's one lady that I still talk to that's still in, and she's actually stationed in Guam right now.
Nice.
So she actually made it all the way up to chief. She's an operations specialist chief. So I thought that was really cool that she
That is,
really took this and made it into a full-time career.
Yeah.
So whereas me, it was just 4 years. I needed what I needed and I got it.
We're the same in that realm. And from my side of the story, I didn't want it to be a career from the get-go, but that's totally okay.
Yeah.
You still did something that most people are not willing to do, and I'm gonna dig a little deeper. So,
I always joke and say I only joined for the discounts.
how do you think your experience in the military shaped who you are today, if at all?
I mean, really, it really was that whole discipline and organization. I mean, I know a lot of people don't think much of it, but I was reckless as a kid. I did a lot of dumb things I probably shouldn't have, and I had no real sense of direction, no real path. My parents they were there as much as they could be, but I was still that rebellious teenager from
Sure.
middle school all the way through graduation. So once I got in front of someone who, and a lot of time people say our RDCs don't really care about us, but they genuinely care, want to
Oh,
make
yeah,
sure
they
they're
do.
putting good people out in the fleet to make sure they represent the United States Navy. So just overall getting that discipline, learning how to lose weight. Obviously I've put it back on,
You and me
but,
both, man.
but it was just that sense of brotherhood, that sisterhood, that discipline. The organization is just insane.
Okay.
Tyler 10, 15, 20 years ago is not the Tyler you see sitting here today.
Sure.
So, and I attribute a lot of that to what I've learned in the service.
What do you think one thing about people that have served in the military is something that civilians just don't get right?
Being on time.
Okay. Okay.
Being on time. I mean,
Okay.
one thing that I learned for sure is to be on time is to be late. So
Yeah.
as you see, when I showed up today, I was about 10, 15 minutes early.
Yeah.
And that's just the
Love
mantra.
that.
I have a schedule. I have it for a reason. I need to stay on time or my whole day is going to blow the smithereens. And a lot of people don't get that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think on time is 5 to 10 minutes late.
Mm-hmm.
It's 5 to 10 minutes early, and
Yeah,
that's
every
a
time.
stretch.
Every time.
That's funny. So,
Okay.
most difficult day on the job in the military, what was that like? And
Sheesh. I mean, being out in that hot sun in the middle of nowhere, you're just floating with no land in sight. There'd be days where I would have to wring out my overalls because I was dripping in sweat, but it's the job that I signed up to do.
yeah,
Long hours, but it was well worth it. Long, long hours. We'd work 16-hour days and we would have to stand 4 hours worth of watch, try to squeeze in meals in between while still making sure the job was getting done that you were tasked for the day. So, that was a bit of a struggle, and I think that's any branch of the military really when it comes down to it. But, those are just the toughest days when we were out to sea for long periods of time, 2 or 3 weeks at a time where, no communication with land.
right.
When you get off that boat, your legs are, them sea legs are real.
I can't relate. I don't want to.
Those sea legs are real. So, that was the hard part, just making, and you do get really tired, you work hard, I was in a physical demanding job where, we were painting, needle gunning, making sure the ship looked good. We were in charge of driving the boat. We were aft lookouts. We were standing out on the back of the ship for hours on end, just making sure no threats were coming, no one fall overboard, there's nothing in the water, so it was just, it can be exhausting,
Yeah.
but the exhaustion doesn't really outweigh the reward of it all.
Right. Right. No, that makes sense. I want to go back a little bit because I didn't ask you this before. What was your MOS?
So I was a boatswain's mate going in.
Okay.
So I started out as undesignated. Again, not smart enough for college. You better believe I did not do well testing. So they were like, you can still leave, but you would have to go undesignated. Essentially, it was kind of like infantry where you go in and then you select your MOS from there, or you just continue staying infantry.
Sure.
In my case, you go in undesignated, you started out in the deck department, and then you can choose within the first year and a half or two if you want to test out of being a boatswain's mate.
Okay.
So I had a lot of friends in that department. I've grown with that department. I've seen a lot of change in that department. So it just made sense to just stick around and just kind of figure out what it had to offer. And it kept me in shape. I learned a lot, when it came down to what the work looks like from keeping a ship as magnificent as you can, because that's a representation of the United States. So
Right.
that was definitely worth it.
Which boat were you on?
I was on the DDG 77, the USS O'Kane.
Very nice.
It was a small destroyer, guided missile destroyer, ballistic missile defense. And we just pretty much just stayed on guard. When things got pretty serious, I think it was between one of the Koreas, we were out in the waters. If anything were to go off, we would be the ones to intercept that missile,
Wow.
should that happen. And there's been times where we've been, on guard where we needed to man stations and just make sure everything was good if the threat levels were increased. So it was pretty intense.
Like real life fire guard.
Like real life. Like we're not in a simulator no more.
Right, right. Any favorite stories that you remember?
I had a lot of fun. I mean, I think by far experiencing Thailand was probably my favorite. And I know you said we're going to get into that a little bit later, but just the overall experience in Thailand, from being in Thailand to exploring Thailand to just being around the areas in general, everything from I rode elephants to exploring some of the rainforest. It was just an overall incredible experience I wouldn't have got to the honor to do had I been on the path that I was on before I got here. So
That's wild, man. I think you're the first person I've ever met that's ridden an elephant.
dude, it's sick. I even have one tatted on my leg right here.
That's sweet. I've
So
never
dope.
heard that before.
Bro.
Okay, so you go from boot camp and in just 2 weeks after A school, you're deploying. That's an intense feeling.
That's an intense feeling, especially when you're waiting.
Yeah.
I think the anticipation was probably the worst. Knowing getting there was fine, but just leading up to that point, knowing that you're literally about to go on this like 6 to 8 month deployment, and you just shined your boots.
Right.
So it's pretty intense, especially coming on. And these people have already been on board. They've been there for a while. They've been probably almost 2-3 weeks into this deployment already. So just coming on board and just having to just dive right in was pretty intense.
Okay. I'm going to change gears a little bit just because you mentioned it. Are there anything, so you're on time. I know that that's one thing that you take pride in, and that's definitely something that you can learn from the military that generally speaking you don't unlearn. Is there anything else in your life that you still hold true to from a tradition standpoint?
I really think respect is a big one too.
Okay.
Respecting those people that come before you, respect in general. I learned everything from my chief commanding officer all the way down to, a seaman recruit coming in fresh from boot camp. It's that level of respect that you give everyone that is kind of earned and taught
Right.
in basic. So I think that was a huge takeaway as well.
Okay, so we're not shining boots anymore.
We're not shining boots anymore. In fact, I probably need to shine these loafers here.
No, we're on the same page. So we're going from A school to deployment. What is day one like for you?
You get on board, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of people back and forth. There's paperwork everywhere. There's just things being thrown your direction that, you literally just learned. And it was pretty crazy. It was very fast paced.
Yeah.
We didn't start standing watch for a while because we had to get some of our qualifications in place before we were able to stand watch and whatnot. But then that was another huge part of it, just making sure you get on board, you start working on your qualifications. You can't start with everything from everyday maintenance to those higher end jobs to, even learning how to mix paint.
Yeah.
You had to have equal parts primer to, there was 2 different colors. You either had slate gray or you had gunmetal gray. There was only 2 you could pick from. But if you just mix it just wrong, there's that little glimmer of orange that shines through. And you know, learning how to cover up holidays and things like that. So when the chief does walk around, you can kind of take pride in some of your work that you've done. But,
Okay.
it was very fast paced.
Yeah.
Dive in, get right to it. Here's your bunk. I was on the very, very bottom where people would step on my bunk to get to the top bunk. And it took a while to get over that, but
Yeah.
it was a learning curve. So, and
Okay.
learning to share that space with, let's say, 60 other men with 2 showers and 3 bathrooms, it was pretty tough. I mean, there's obviously bathrooms all over, but in that one barracks, we only had those 3 showers and a couple stalls to use. So it was just a huge learning curve
Okay.
to kind of adapt and be around that many people.
What was leadership like for you?
Leadership was great. I mean, I had BMC Hernandez was probably the toughest chief that I've had,
Okay.
but he genuinely cared.
Nice.
He was one of those guys where he would crack the whip. He had no issue cussing you out one minute and taking you out for a steak dinner the next.
Nice.
So, he was a very good dude. He's been out since then. I think he made it all the way up to senior chief before he got out. But he, since I've left the boat, and I've had like 2 chiefs since then, but he was very, very solid. I mean, I can remember one point where I was just still kind of screwing around a little bit. He took me in that back room. He's like, "Look, I will kick your ass right here if you don't chill." And I mean, he's a big dude. I was like, "Yes, sir. You got it. Yes, chief."
Yeah.
And kind of went from there. But he was definitely a tough one. And then, our master chief on board, very, very humble guy, very, very nice. He came from the logistics world. I think he went from a shopkeeper up to, they call it a PS, but it was like a personalization, so a personnel specialist,
Okay.
where they're the ones who run the paperwork, run the credentials.
Sure.
When it comes time for ranking, they're the ones doing the pinning and all that stuff. So he made his career out of that and ended up becoming master chief on board our ship. And he was super, super nice guy. He was there the duration of the time I was on board until I got off my second deployment. So it was definitely good leadership. And there was a couple people I didn't really care for,
Sure.
but again, that whole respect thing is key.
Oh, there always is. It's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Any struggles while you were in?
Struggle wise, I mean, it took some getting used to in general, just being away from everyone. My whole family's in Ohio,
Yeah.
and I was all the way on the West Coast, hours away, 4 hour time difference. So that was really hard just to, stay in communication. Deployment gets tough because you get lonely. It does kind of, though you're around all those people, you can't really get online. Internet access is very, very limited. And what is available is usually meant for, those higher ups who are for communication, and phone use was very limited. So it was just kind of hard being on deployment for so long at a time with very, very little communication.
Yeah. So you go from A school, Guam. What's after Guam?
So that's when we head out to 7th Fleet. We were on the first trek of our stint out in 7th Fleet. So basically, if we get picked up, we get the ship ready. We're probably in port for about 2 days before we are ready to finally take off for the final stretch of the deployment. And, we go through the Straits of Hormuz, which was pretty intense because we had to man up on the guns on that because we have enemies on both sides. We have hundreds of cargo passenger boats going between us. So once we get there, we kind of just levitate in that little general vicinity out that way, and just long stints at a time was just kind of rough. But,
Yeah.
it was a learning curve.
Okay. So you went to Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little about Thailand.
Just though, stay away from American Alley. It's dangerous. But no, I mean, Thailand was all really just a blur because it's a huge party city, and we're young. The drinking age, I think, is maybe even 16 in Thailand. I'm not really sure.
Wow.
Don't quote me on that. But, we were partying, having a good time. And then from the culture side, we got to experience the food, the language, again, we got to ride elephants through the rainforest, which was mind blowing. And just overall, I think Thailand is just a gorgeous place. The beaches there are phenomenal. We were primarily in Phuket beaches where we were moored out to. We were out to sea and we had a mobile taxi out come and get us so we could go to shore. But the beaches there are absolutely phenomenal. The food there is out of this world. It was just an overall culture evolution, really.
Okay. Okay. So am I missing anything between Guam and Thailand, or is there anything going on there?
No, I mean, we went to several different countries, and we had to go to several different places. We also used to meet up with different aircraft carriers and do flight ops and things. So there was a lot of things going on in between being out to sea just to make sure we were ready. Because again, we were on standby just in case things escalated. And so flight ops were really cool. I got to learn to chain and chalk the aircrafts as they land on board because we had a small boy. We can
Yeah.
only get helicopters back there. And so one of my responsibilities was to run out, hook the wheel, tie it onto the flight deck, and then take off. And then the people would get off board. We would exchange supplies, whatever it may be. Sometimes they would bring on like little military patches, which I still have a couple of those patches, but I
Yeah.
think are really sweet from some of the commanders from different areas, even outside of the U.S. We would practice. So it was really, really cool.
Yeah. I think one of the coolest takeaways, the first coin you get, man, and the
That is
first patch.
it's
Oh
unbelievable.
my gosh, dude. Like it's such a cool feeling. Like you finally like cuz you get your awards and stuff like that, but that coin, man, that's different.
That's a keepsake.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, it's just different, dude. And or do you carry yours at all or no?
So my grandfather, who was one of my biggest angels, passed away just before I even decided to go off to the service. And he had Alzheimer's really bad. And
Okay.
he had this little Mickey Mouse that he would play with. So when he passed away, I somehow came into possession of it. So I still have that patch, my very first patch, attached to this little Mickey Mouse figure that sits on the shelf.
That's awesome.
So I keep it with my grandfather because, again, we have family that served, and my dad was in the Army. And so I think that was just like a little special place to keep. My very first patch was on my grandfather's doll.
Yeah. So I got my first coin from a pretty intense call from someone in the military,
Mhm.
like once I was actually at my duty station. But in reality, my first coin was actually from my dad. And that coin is so lame. Like what's on it is it's so boring. And at the time I was like, Dad, like you couldn't have found a cooler one. But now like that's totally the most special
Mhm.
coin to me. It definitely doesn't have as many features as a lot of the other ones that
yeah.
are in the books, but yeah, man. I mean it doesn't there's so many different meanings to so many
Oh,
different
yeah.
things and
Yeah.
you never know. I mean, but that's really cool.
Well, even a client of mine that I helped a few years back, he was going to CB school because he was switching MOSs, and once we closed on his house because his wife was moving to California to be with him. Once we closed on that house, he actually bought me a CB token, so
Okay.
Destruction Battalion. So I thought that was really nice. It has a little
Yeah.
bumblebee holding a machine gun, so that was a really neat one that I got too.
That's
So
awesome.
they're really cool, and they do mean things to different people, and swapping in within the community is pretty cool to me too. So
Yeah.
if you ever want to swap one, just like
Oh man, I'm in, dude. You don't say less.
let's create a
I
whole
have my
Facebook
own.
group for coin swapping.
I have my own. I got some made when I was a platoon leader. They're chips. They're not coins, but still like that. And there's so many cool stories because like I think one of the cool parts is like the coin comes with a story.
Yeah.
But now for me, from being a platoon leader, like I know, pretty much all of the stories that came from me giving someone one of
Mhm.
those coins, which is cool. It's kind of special to me. So, what was the hardest part about coming home?
I think it's just adjusting. They sent me halfway around the world, just kind of on my own to figure it out. Once you do get a routine going, and then you come back to the real world where it's like kind of just a free for all.
Yeah.
It was kind of a culture shock,
Yeah.
where I'm still folding my socks a particular way, or like if my socks get mixed up in my parents' laundry when I moved home, like they would fold it and I would have to just go back and fix it. So and for the life of me, the one thing I cannot break is eating fast.
Okay.
Because
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
back
yeah.
in the day, the
No,
time,
we're on
like
the
you don't
same
have
page.
time to really eat. So it's just like I still scarf down my food, and like I can't break that habit. But just overall, just getting a new routine down where it was so dictated from day to day for a long period of time, to where now you don't have that. You don't have that discipline, that structure. It's where you have to kind of just figure that part on your own again. I was young when I left, so I never really had organization or structure or anything like that. So coming back, I just really had to focus on putting that back in and figure out what I want to be when I grow older. Because now I don't have the military to lean on. Now what?
Right. Right.
Again, college was not really an option for me because, for one, I don't really have the attention span to go to college. But I just know I needed to figure something out, and not having that was kind of weird.
Okay.
It was kind of weird.
Was there anything that contributed to your decision to get out, or were you just ready to
I
go?
was just ready to go.
Okay.
They were getting ready to suit up for another deployment, and my job in particular was more of a sea job than it is a land job. So I didn't have the opportunity to have a lot of shore duty, for lack of better words. I didn't have a lot of opportunity for that, and I'm just like, do I really want to do this again, or do I just take my time? And so as they were getting the ship ready, they were to get ready to go for deployment. I was processing my paperwork to go ahead and just and part ways. I was ready to go.
Okay. So was it just the two, or was there more?
There was just the two.
Okay.
It was just the
So
two.
I think there's something to be said about the Navy specifically. A lot of people think about deployments and somewhere for an extended period of time, usually 6, 9 months in a combat zone. But the Navy, what people don't understand is that the Navy, no matter what time it is, peace or war,
We're out
they're
there
deploying.
monitoring. Yeah.
They're deploying at all times. So,
If we get
um,
that call, we have to be ready to go.
yeah, I could see that getting old, especially if you don't get the opportunity to do
Hmm.
shore duty.
And we just came off a dry dock too. So like I was already comfortable, and they're like, oh, well, dry dock's wrapping up. We get ready to pack your bags and you should get out of here. No.
Okay, so you get out, and just from a personal standpoint, I don't think I realized in the moment how hard it was getting out until like 3 years later.
Mm.
What does that look like to you? Like, what were your plans? Did you have any
I
plans?
didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. I had no plan. I came back. I got me a job, and it was a job that I was comfortable with that I've already done before, and it was making pizza. So I got a job at a pizza shop so I can just at least get some sort of money. And then at the time I was dating my husband now, my boyfriend back then, and he was working a professional job. He was in registration at a hospital. And so I was just like, I really need to figure something out.
Yeah.
I really need, because I was working from dead end job to dead end jobs. At one point, I was working at, a pizza shop and a dollar store. And then I would drop the dollar store and go to another pizza place. So it's like I needed some sort of normalcy in
Okay.
my life. And then that's when I got on at the hospital a few years later. And then I made somewhat of a career out of that. I was at the hospital for about 5 years. And then, COVID came and shifted everyone's life. So I just hopped out of that and then started real estate.
So you were a home buyer, and that contributed to you becoming a real estate agent.
That was
Am I
a
correct?
huge portion of it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. 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 So I went through my experience with buying a home, and it was just a good experience. We learned a lot, had a lot of fun, and just to be able to know that, because at the time when we first bought, my credit was crap, so I couldn't do the loan myself.
Sure.
But just learning how to work with buyers from being a buyer kind of helped boost a lot of that.
Okay.
So knowing that I could potentially do it, I think anybody can do it as long
Yeah.
as you're willing to put the work in. It's definitely an achievable goal.
No, for sure. And, we hear that a lot actually. Like, hey, this was a great experience. I'm thinking about doing it. It comes up a
It
lot,
does.
which is really cool. And I think that's special. But that also says a lot about, the real estate agent that you must have had,
Mm-hmm.
potentially doing a really good job. So,
Yes.
what gives you purpose now?
Just seeing my husband happy, providing a lifestyle that I never thought I could have. Because one thing about Tyler, I never thought I was going to be successful at anything. I was always just that run of the mill kid that would just go from thing to thing to thing and just kind of just not really fail, but just get bored of it and just keep
Right.
moving, or fail for that matter. Now that I found something that works, that makes me happy, that provides for my family, that allows us, I wouldn't say we're rich by any means, but I can officially say we're no longer lower middle class, we're at least middle class, and that feels great.
Yeah.
To be able to have a little bit of breathing room and some flexibility in my life now that I never thought I would have.
Yeah.
So that's what keeps me going.
That's awesome. So if you had to go back to day one, boatswain's mate, Tyler Hicks, what would you tell him?
Take off those BCGs.
Wow. Okay.
Because, just as I was getting out of boot camp, that's when they were transitioning to those new sleeker black frames. And I had these massive coke pedals in my face. And I'm like, I should have got that. But then I spent my whole first deployment in those BCGs because I never went and got an appointment to get the new ones.
Okay.
So yeah, I wish I would have kicked those a lot sooner.
We're talking about some sunglasses here, by the way.
Epic sunglasses.
Yeah, check that out on the internet. They're classic. That's hilarious.
But no, on a serious note, I wish I would have taken it a little bit more serious. Not that I didn't, but I wish I would have been more in the moment than what I was.
Yeah. No, I feel that because it's always go in the
It's always
military.
go.
And
Mhm.
you do take a lot of the things that are going on, for granted, especially once you're out, you're like, dang, man, there's a lot of good times.
Mm.
A lot of bad ones. I mean, don't get me wrong, but there's so many different things that you can look back on and just smile about, which is
Oh yeah.
is super special.
And the stories to tell and the experiences overall, it's definitely gives me something to look back on and reflect.
Yeah.
Definitely a pivotal point in my life that completely turned me around to a better perspective, a better way of living, and just overall, just the confidence that I needed, because I was just a scared little boy back then. Now I'm, out here destroying records and, setting them bars higher than I ever thought I'd ever be able to hit.
Yeah,
So
dude, you're doing your thing, and we
thank you,
all
sir.
see it. So you gave yourself advice. What advice would you give someone else?
The day they tell you to put your head down and raise your hand if you want to run, do it. No, I'm just kidding.
We
I
got a
know,
brand new boots with
yes.
me. What are you telling them?
I would say just take your time and again, just enjoy it. You'll be doing a lot of preservation work and it's going to get tiring. And they teach you how to just be patient. And a lot of that is patience when you're dealing with a massive 100-year-old ship trying to make sure it looks good. It definitely does give you a glimpse of patience. So what you're doing now may seem silly when you're in there, but it does teach you a bigger lesson later on down the line. Because a lot of the things I did, I was like, why am I even doing this? But now looking back on it, I was like, okay, now it makes sense.
I sent myself an email yesterday because I was thinking we got some Q&A going on in the background on Facebook, and something that I was thinking about was, and this has nothing to do with what you're talking about, but it's okay to admit when you're wrong about something
That's true.
and just understanding that and then taking charge of that. So recalling a certain situation where I was so frustrated with the mundaneness of what we were doing, serializing certain things. And I remember our ops sergeant, who was an unbelievable dude, just an incredible guy, having us do something that was just like, dude, why are we doing this? And I know anyone that's joined the military or served for half an hour can think back and think about one situation. They're like, why
Mhm.
are we doing this? And about 6 to 9 months later, it proved to be one of the most important things our company ever did,
Nice.
doing what he told us to do. And I remember arguing with, not arguing, just being like, dude, are you serious? Frustrated with him. Like, can we please just chill on this? And very shortly after, it proved to be extremely important.
That's awesome.
Now I'll give you a little bit more detail when we're done here. But no, it was important. And I think there's always going to be that situation where you come to reality and you're like, that's why. And that's important, but also taking a step back and be like, hey, dude, just because you feel a certain type of way doesn't mean you're right about it. So that's a big deal.
I think ours was swabbing the slick decks while it's pouring down and raining.
Right,
What
right.
are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, there's always those ones though too, where you're like, hey, man, why don't you go rake the gravel parking lot for us? It's like that one's for a different
You're out there for
reason.
hours.
Okay, so what's something about service that you miss at this point?
I mean, I do miss the traveling aspect of it, because at that point in my life, I've never really traveled much far outside of Ohio. Furthest probably was like maybe Tennessee,
Okay.
so just to be able to have that experience of a lifetime to see all these different places and not only for military purposes, but for leisure purposes,
Yeah.
because there were times where we got to go out and explore and learn and, go to different places. I do miss that, the learning the cultures and just exploring because we travel a lot now, but we don't really travel internationally too far. So just have that back would be great,
Yeah.
and just the camaraderie and the brotherhood. And just that's a huge part of it because now I still talk to these people, but we're not as close as we used to be. So I wish we were still kind of bring that back. But
I mean, you can
it's
do
all
it. I
good.
will say that that's like a huge void. I'm thankful enough to have a couple really, really close friends, battle buddies, that one in particular that I'm on the phone with every single day.
That's awesome.
Um, and I wish that everyone, especially civilians, could have an experience like that. I don't think that there's anything out there in the world that relates to, I mean, even like your own brothers and sisters, like I'm sorry. There are certain relationships that are just not like those
I'm telling you,
that
because
we
you
form.
go to battle with these people.
Yeah.
These are people you are risking your life with, on a daily basis. Yeah, would I go out away from my sister? Absolutely. But like to be on the trenches with these people day in and day out, months on end, because like I said, it's not a, I wasn't on a huge aircraft carrier, which is a floating city essentially. But, you're still with these people every day. You sleep with them in the same areas. Like these are essentially coffins we're sleeping in. Like we're on top of each other, sleeping together every night. And it's just a different experience. It's a whole
Yeah.
nother world over there.
Okay.
But you got the luxury of having a bed, so I don't want to hear it.
Hey man, I had a couple. Okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. Oh man. Oh gosh. So you brought. I was gonna skip this, but you put me back in basic training, and one of the things that I want to reflect on is the food. How was the food
Honestly, the
at
food
Great
was
Lakes?
good. I mean,
Okay.
I didn't hate it, but you guys have to deal with MREs and things like that. We had a full kitchen on board the ship, so I
Yeah.
mean, we worked with what supplies we had, but for the most part, the food was not bad.
Yeah.
I know I remember having to scarf it down because you only get by the time you get your food and sit down, you have like maybe 4 or 5 minutes to eat, and then you're being called off. But I don't recall the food ever being bad.
So I remember being in basic training with my one of my battle buddies, Chris, and we're going through the chow hall and I'm looking at this food that he's getting, man, and I'm like, what is that?
It's
It's
not even real
disgusting, like
food.
this pink, like, so I skip it. And I see him keep going back and forth with this, like throughout the weeks we were there. And finally I'm like, dude, what are you ordering? And it's corned beef hash.
Oh, that's the worst.
It's like an ice cream scoop of corned beef hash, man. Oh my God, it's unbelievable. I loved it.
Do
I
you? I still
loved
cannot
it.
stand corned beef.
I loved it. But another thing too, like we were out in the field once, and I'm with my platoon sergeant. He's like, "Sir, they're having steaks out at the KP tent." And I'm like, "I'm not eating steak out here. Like that's not. I am not eating steak out of a KP
Oh,
tent.
that's
There's
funny.
no way." It was unbelievable.
Oh,
Like,
that's awesome.
honest to God, like one of the best steaks I've ever had in my life.
That's awesome.
Like, we're not at Karen Mitchell, it's not Jeff Ruby, but it
What
was
it was,
really good, man. I don't know if it was because the food that we were eating before throughout the week was just terrible, but it was unbelievable, dude.
Yeah, we would have Steel Beach picnics from time to time where they would fly in food and like they would set the flight deck up with grills and we would cook and all that fun stuff. And that was really good. That was a fun experience. But mass producing 300-400 steaks, you sounds like it's a bad idea,
Yeah.
but when you're out to
It
sea
could
for
go
months at
well.
end, it's pretty good.
Okay, so I know you're not into golf. It's okay.
Okay.
But past or present, if you were going to play golf with someone, anyone in the world, who would it be?
I don't know.
No?
Because I never thought to play golf with you.
I'll give you a
I'll
minute.
say you. I'd play golf with you.
Me. Wow, I got a lot to live up to if that's the case.
There you go.
Okay.
Just because we can have a good time, talk our shit, and just
For sure, man. I think, one of the coolest things about being someone that served in the military is that like I remember the day I met you. Whenever you meet someone that's been in the military, it's an instant connection.
mhm,
That doesn't mean that you're going to create a relationship with that person, but like you have something that you can share to
right.
create a bond. And I think that's super special and I appreciate the hell out of that about you.
Absolutely.
So, is there anything else you want to share that we've missed so far?
No, just if you're thinking about doing it, it is a commitment. It is something that you would have to put your all into going into it, but it's not for everybody. I won't say that, but it's definitely a life-changing experience
Yeah.
for sure.
It's it's a super special thing to be able to do and say and
Right.
and I think, that's something else that a lot of people miss is not everyone's given the opportunity to do that. It's a crazy feeling because like once you're committed to that, it's like, well, there is nothing else.
It's fast paced. It's full speed ahead if you're doing it. Once that ink dries, it's game over.
Oh yeah, it's over, dude. It's absolutely over.
Because there's been people, there were, even when I got there, I flew from Ohio over to Chicago, then they had the bus to take us over to Great Lakes. And like, there were people that didn't even go. They
Really?
just stayed. They were, the RDCs were nice getting on the bus, but once you got on that bus, it was flip of a switch. Like, you guys can get off right now if you don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, no one got off. Some people didn't get on, but at that point, everyone that was on, that was on. We got there late at night, so as soon as those lights turned on when we got on base, it was game over.
Did anyone get in trouble, including you? Anyone get in any trouble while you were at boot camp?
Yeah, there were several people. I mean, we had this thing it's called being ASMO'd, so that means you're removed to the rear.
Okay.
And we had a gentleman who was going through pre-buds, getting ready to go off for Naval SEAL training.
Yeah.
And we had mixed, female, male, like, departments.
Right.
But mine was male only.
Sure.
So it was kind of varied throughout. And this gentleman he was almost about 2 or 3 weeks away from graduating, and he got caught passing notes across the barracks to a young lady that was standing watch, and the RDC walked in, read the note to the whole compartment, And then he got removed to the rear about 4 weeks, and he joined us, and we were like week 3, week 4, so he had to start all over again.
Yeah.
And that's some wild, and that completely destroyed him because there was a day we were, there were days where we were in the classroom learning about different airships, different planes, what have you, and you could see his class marching with their final battle flag down, and he just lost his mind. He just lost his mind. So it was just, that was a heart-wrenching situation. Now, I don't think there was a time where we were all standing in line in front of the fish bowls, what they called it, because the RDC had a little pod and you could see through every angle of the room.
Yeah.
And we had to line up in height order. So like they called it a height line. So whenever you heard height line, you had to go get in line. You had like maybe 45 seconds to arrange 80 people in a height line. And a gentleman burped behind me. And when you're getting ready, you got to be dead silent.
Yeah.
This guy burped. RDC comes right up to me. He goes, "So you think you're funny?" And you can't say no, petty officer, or none of that. You say that, it's game over. After a while, the guy starts laughing, and I'm getting yelled at. I'm about ready to hit my face, do push-ups, sit-ups, whatever the heck they wanted me to do for that punishment.
Yeah.
And the guy finally confessed that it was him that did it.
Oh, they thought it was you.
They thought it was me.
Okay. Oh,
like,
man.
No,
not
I
cool.
can't defend myself because I don't want, because obviously you can't make the RDC look stupid, but like, it was bad. I was about ready to take my punishment, and this dude behind me is just snickering away, and I'm like, great. It's very traumatizing, but at the same time, it's all for a purpose.
Yeah.
That's what I had to keep reminding myself. Like, yeah, I'm doing 8 counts for an hour, but now I know not to do that. I'm also getting some physical weight off of me. So it's just wild, dude. It's crazy. And I say that not to scare anybody, but at the same time, the real world of it is they need to get you down as small as they can to build you back up as big as you can.
For sure.
And that's the one thing that I can take away from boot camp is they didn't belittle me for no reason. Not that it was even belittling. It was just a matter of if I messed up, I needed to be corrected.
Yeah.
So they make you feel small. But the goal is, again, to build a great soldier or sailor or whatever, airman, whatever it is, out of who you're coming into boot camp as compared to who you're going to leave boot camp.
Yeah.
It's just wild.
No, for sure. It says a lot, especially because people ask about it all the time. People think that's the intense part about a military career. And it can be, but you find struggle, but it's also a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun.
It's super simple.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've always told people, especially those that are interested in joining the military, there's like 3 things that are important. It's to be on time, in the right place, and the right uniform. That's it.
You just show up.
That's it. And then do what you're told.
Yeah.
It is a lot of fun, a lot of good memories. But with that said, I think we're going to close up shop. We're going to have the golf balls set up in one spot, and you are our very first number 1. Nice. If you would not mind signing this golf ball for me.
Absolutely. And it has number 1 on it.
100%. I do think it's the right way.
I don't think that was on purpose, but I'll take that.
No, it was on purpose.
Number 1, baby.
There we go. Got a voucher for you. I wouldn't be doing this without you. Sweet. So we're going to get you a t-shirt here soon. And this one's going to stick for a long time. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely, brother. I appreciate you.
And Tyler Hicks, everybody. Thanks for watching Power and Purpose.
Appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of hard to write on a golf ball. I don't know if you know that. Couples are a bit
It looks good. It looks good.